What about mercury?
Well, that's a good question because that's probably the most common question we get. I was just at our booth today and had several people come up and say, well, what about mercury? And it's an interesting question because on one hand, I'm pleased to be able to say that we focus on seafood and on particular species that are known to be the cleanest. And those are generally species that don't live very long. They live in areas that are known to be the cleanest waters on Earth. So Alaska salmon, for instance. And Alaska salmon generally live 2 to 4 years, so they're not around bioaccumulating toxins very long. Same with sardines, mackerel. The species that do tend to live longer, like halibut, some of the tuna species, we source only the smallest fish that come off the boats. So they're definitely the cleanest that our customers can find anywhere. But I say it's an interesting question because the science is that people are not getting sick from eating seafood. When you look at the studies, there's never been a single peer-reviewed published paper linking mercury toxicity to ocean seafood, except people that are eating large pilot whale, large marine mammals that have exceptionally high levels of mercury. Areas where there have been industrial accidents, such as Minamata, Japan. But really, if you look around the world, the people who have the healthiest brains, hearts, joints, skin, blood, eyes, those are the people that are eating the most seafood. And you look at the studies that are the most rigorous, some of the most elegant studies, and they don't say don't eat seafood, they say eat more seafood. So I'm happy to answer questions about mercury, but I think it's a distraction. And I think when the headlines talk about Jeremy Piven going into a sushi bar and getting poisoned from eating too much sushi, that scares a lot of people away from probably one of the healthiest things they could be eating.
Well, now we're talking about healthiest things that we could be eating.
Mm-hmm.
You've caught the fish,
Mm-hmm.
you've brought them to shore.
Mm-hmm.
What about the sustainability of those benefits from that point on until someone opens the can or the box and eats the product?
That's probably the second most frequently asked question. More and more people are becoming conscious about where their seafood comes from, and that's a good thing. I was at an international seafood conference a few weeks ago, and I learned that there are now somewhere between 30 and 40 NGOs out there devoted to trying to save our ocean resources. And Alaska is probably a model, probably surpasses every other place on Earth as far as being a model for sustainable management of their fisheries. They actually became a state in order to take to take control of their fisheries away from the federal government because they were being so mismanaged. So they wrote right into their constitution that all of their fisheries will be managed on a sustainable yield basis. And what that means is that the market demand is completely isolated from the management of the fisheries. So the biologists that control the salmon fisheries, every river will have a biologist who is assigned to that, or he may be assigned to several rivers, but his one objective is to make sure he gets enough fish up that river to spawn and sustain the run. And the beautiful thing about it is, most of the time there's way more fish than they need to meet his needs. So for instance, a river that I used to fish frequently, they needed 2 million salmon to go up that river. And the spawning grounds would only accommodate that many fish. And in one extreme case, I think it was 1995, we had 20 million fish come back to that river. So once those 2 million fish got up the river, the rest was available to the fleet. And that's really generally the way they manage all of their fisheries. The biologist, it's very scientifically based. They assess the biomass of the different species, whether it's black cod or halibut, pollock, the various salmon species. And they set a guideline harvest target. And if I'd been sitting in my boat at that river and only 1 million fish would have come back, I would have gone home without catching any fish because they would never have opened the fishery. And that happens every now and then. But generally, it's a positive story. And of course, newspapers don't like positive stories. They like controversial ones. So what people read about is the last salmon going up the Snake River, and a lot of people think that salmon are on the verge of being extinct. And unfortunately, in many cases that's true, but in Alaska, in the California, Pacific Northwest, where we put dams on the rivers, the salmon are in trouble. But in Alaska, they haven't dammed their rivers. The habitat is pristine, and the salmon are doing just great.